The announcements. A year of learning sponsored by the Topio family in memory of the 1 year of life of Sarah Mordechai Topio's sister 80 years ago. A year of learning sponsored by the Grove and Linsenbaum Markowitz and Schwartz families in memory of Mr. Louis Linsenbaum, Laser Ben Aryeh, beloved father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. And a week of learning sponsored by Dina and Daniel Jarashow to commemorate the yahrzeit of Daniel's mother, Irene Jarashow, Rachel Leah Bat Nachum, on the 16th of Kislev. And a day of learning sponsored by the Stone family in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Gavin's paternal grandmother, Sarah Bat Yudel.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning to everybody who's here, who's on Zoom. At this time of year, it's quite common in many places, especially on Thanksgiving and on Christmas Day and New Year's, for members of the Jewish community in particular, in many cases, and other communities as well, to donate or to present food to the local firefighters or policemen or hospital workers who have to work on these days, to express, in general, the gratitude of the community for the service that these important people do. And the question arises, is it permissible for a Jewish group, and then again, many groups do this, but for a Jewish group, for a synagogue, for example, to give non-kosher food for a holiday gift or provide a meal for workers? Is it permissible to do that? And if so, under what circumstances? Is there a difference in the type of non-kosher food you might be able to give them? And how do you, if it's permissible, how do you go about doing it in a halakhic way? And if it's not permissible, let's figure out why. Now, there are two ways to give a gift. You give a gift with no expectation at all of anything in return, which is the proper way to give a gift. But clearly, there is an implicit understanding that in return for hakara satov, if you will, our gratitude to, say, the ambulance squad or to the local volunteer fire department, they will not forget the fact that the Jewish community came out and expressed their gratitude to them. So like a tit for tat type of thing, and the Gemara is concerned about that as well. Are you doing something with an ulterior motive involved? But let's assume that we're doing this for the right motives. Is it appropriate? Is it allowable to give non-kosher food to these important people in our community? And the question is not a new question. Yes.
You're emphasizing non-kosher food.
Yes.
And I know a lot of shuls that, like Thanksgiving bring pies to the fire department.
Right.
So is it like food bichlal, recognizing, to a non-Jew, or is it dafka, like some people, when that free turkey at shop right there,
Right.
$400, rather than put it towards less money, we'll give a non-kosher turkey to some non-Jewish people.
So actually, this question came up in a shiur Rabbi Mandelstam gave this past Shabbos, and Rabbi Yudin was there as well, specifically about the ShopRite turkeys. Because I asked the question, if I get a ShopRite turkey for the explicit purpose of giving it to my cleaning girl, is that permissible? Now, normally, it's connected to this question here, but if people see me standing online with a treif turkey, how does that look? A whole bunch of issues come in there, Marasai and other things. But then again, if people know who I am, they're not going to suspect. Okay, so that was Rabbi Yudin's answer. That was Rabbi Yudin's answer, that the people will not be choshe b'chsherim, so to speak. But it's the same type of question. If the men's club decides to treat the volunteer fire department with a bagels and lox breakfast, on New Year's Day or something like that, and they buy bagels from a kosher bagel store, that's not a problem. Not a problem at all. Yeah, all right. So if you're getting kosher food, you're doing a double mitzvah. You're expressing hakaras hatov and you're supporting the local kosher store. A similar question comes up. What about office parties? If you have a large office, if it's a law office or a big office, and you have a holiday party, and you cater some kind of a cocktail party, does the cocktail party, and it's not necessarily a Jewish firm, it's a big office. You have Jews working there, but you also have a majority of non-Jews working there. And we're talking about putting aside the Jewish question. Can you offer non-kosher food at an office party? It's the same type of question. And we'll get to ways how we can work around this topic in a moment. But first, we have to understand what the sources have to tell us about this. The Mishnah in Shvius. I'm sorry, yes. Now, okay, there are a lot of questions. What doesn't come up here, a more important question, and I haven't seen this specifically in any of the sources, there is a separate halacha of lo sechane, that you're not allowed to do anything to ingratiate yourselves to the non-Jews. You can't do anything basically to help them. You can, and there's a lot of halachas of lo sechane, which basically you can't have a meal with them. There's all kinds of issues. That hasn't come up in this entire discussion. We're talking strictly on the issue of giving non-kosher food to non-Jews, putting it right now. Again, if there are Jews involved, it's a separate issue. But I'm talking specifically to non-Jewish fire department, or a non-Jewish ambulance squad, or non-Jewish police. I mean, there might be a Jew among them, but we're talking specifically in situations where they're not. I do remember a number of years ago, before we had Hatzalah and Fair Law, the one individual in the shul catered a meal for the volunteer first responders, because there happened to have been a number of frum people who are among the local community first aid responders. And instead of just giving something kosher to those half a dozen people, they provided for the entire station a huge kosher meal. And the Kiddush Hashem that resulted from that was wonderful. But people, look at these wonderful people that give us a meal. It was very nice. I remember Moshe Zarnus, who at that time was on the first responders in Fair Law, talked about it, about the response from the non-Jewish ambulance drivers and other people, what a great Kiddush Hashem this was. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the normal procedure. In many cases, people volunteer in food pantries, people volunteer, they give all kinds of food. So where does this come from? So the Mishnah in Shvius says that you're not allowed to do business with Peiros Shvius, anything that was harvested during the sabbatical year, you can't benefit from, or by extension, any other under normal circumstances, non-kosher items. Nevelos, treifos, shkotzim, ramosim. You cannot do business, you cannot profit from non-kosher items. The Mishnah very clearly. And it adds another thing though. However, if you are, let's say, a fisherman, and you happen to catch some non-kosher fish or crabs or whatever in your net, you are, and it says the nizdamu lahem. It happens. That's not what you're looking for. You're fishing for codfish, and you get a bunch of crabs in your net. You're allowed to sell the crabs and benefit from it, because that wasn't your purpose. You were looking for fish, and you got crabs, so it happened. You can go with it. Now, the isurim involved, there are two isurim. The isur hama, yes.
But you're still making profit from it. Is that okay?
Well, again, hold on. As my Rabbi would say, halt cup. Hold on a while, because we're going to expand this whole issue. The Mishnah is talking about if it you're allowed to make profit from it, if it should happen by accident, that wasn't your goal. You're not allowed to go purposely to go crab fishing. That you can't do. But you happen to catch some crabs in your net, you can sell them. And the Mishnah permits trappers and fishermen to sell non-kosher things that happen to have been caught by accident. But that's the case. Why is it that you're only allowed to sell it b'di'evid if they were caught by accident? Why not l'chatchila? You'd be able to sell it. Why can't you do business in non-kosher items? And the Gemara says that for shkosim and ramasim, there's a specific pasuk that says lo tashaksu. They are shekets. They're detestable things. And so for insects and crustaceans, that's a whole separate isur. The Torah talks about that. But as far as other things, it's questionable. The Yerushalmi says, and asks a related question, all right, so you can't sell non-kosher items, but what about, let's say, donkeys or camels? Can I do business in donkeys and camels? People generally, some people might eat camel meat, I guess, but generally speaking, the animals are used for malacha, generally not for food. So the Rishalmi raises that question, and there's a whole machlokas of Rishonim as to whether this prohibition is biblical or only rabbinic, and it extends from the prohibition against raising pigs. It's already usur, so why do you have to state that you can't do business selling pigs? And again, most hold that it's a biblical prohibition. But if you want to raise pigs to sell their hides, right, pigskin or other non-food use, then there are heterim to do that. We know, I think Danny and I both know of an individual, a respected member of the Jewish community, actually was at my wedding, whose business was non-kosher animals. He was a non-kosher butcher. And prominent member of the Jewish community. And when he retired to Florida, he donated to his shul $1 million. $1 million, which kept him going for quite a while. I don't know which heter he may have sought to do that, but he did that. But again, if you're raising animals for non-edible purposes, perhaps it might be permissible according to many, many sources. The Rambam talks about it, and he says that it's biblically prohibited, and many other Rishonim, many Achronim also. What about this interesting case? If somebody, this is the Trumas Hadesha brings this down. I lend something to a non-Jew, and he gives me pork rinds as collateral for the loan. Can you accept that? Yeah, you're doing business with non-kosher items. But this is the extent of how this question comes out. Some Achronim hold that it's only midrabanan, and again, if you're not actually interacting with the food, they are somewhat lenient, perhaps. Yes, question?
Yes.
Yes,
Can you buy pigskin jackets or pigskin footballs or anything else that you can do business with, which is from non-kosher animals?
Yeah, well, that's part of the question. If you're doing, there are many poskim hold that if you're doing business or you're utilizing something for a non-edible purpose, then it's less of an issue. And that would be, you could certainly, I wouldn't say a pigskin jacket should be your first choice, but the question comes up, really, halacha l'maaseh, many people get pig valves in heart surgery. Is that permissible? So you can say, well, there's an overriding issue of saving a life, but there's a lot of things. Again, I'm not passing the halacha, and if you have a question about pigskin valve, lo aleinu, it should happen to anybody, consult your local rabbinic authority about that, whether you could benefit from that. But again, it's a non-edible situation, so it would be less of a problem according to many poskim. Is there a difference between insects and animals? Is also brought up by a number of people. The Nodmi Yehuda thinks that most Rishonim would say it's Drabanan, and you could be lenient if there are other reasons that are in evidence. Again, the difference between the Doraisa and the Rabbanon would have to do, and it's a whole separate shiur, about whether you can use legal fictions to avoid the problem, like Mechiras Chametz, for example. If ha'arama is prohibited, if there's a biblical issue involved normally. So that's a whole separate issue of legal fictions to get around certain things, but that's a separate discussion altogether. There's a fascinating Maharam Rutenberg who says that you really shouldn't buy non-kosher food to give as a gift to a non-Jew. So that's the one, it's very clear, he says that you shouldn't do this. And the Shulchan Aruch rules that a gift is considered like a sale. Because if you don't get any benefit from the gift, you'd never give it, which is a strange way of looking at gifts. But again, in the back of everybody's mind, when you give a gift, there's some type of payback implied, perhaps. And he's concerned about that. The Ramah in Shulchan Aruch says very clearly, based on this Rabbi Rutenberg, as quoted, that it's prohibited to give non-kosher food to one's workers. Let's say I have a farm and I have workers that part of the deal is to feed them. So I can give them Domino's pizza or I can get Zevi's pizza. I should get Zevi's pizza, according to the Ramah. Because it's within your control to do. They're your workers, and you have to feed them kosher food, according to the Ramah. However, donating it as a gift to somebody else may not be as stringent. The Shach, 17th century, the Shach points out in his commentary that it is common practice to give non-kosher food to one's employees. This is what people did. So you have clearly a machlokas among the poskim as to how to deal with this issue. That people did it. They explained the Ramah by saying, it refers to somebody who raises non-kosher animals, and therefore he can slaughter them and give them. There's a detailed machlokas, we don't have to get into that, but clearly there are machmirim and there are matirim who allow you to give non-kosher food to workers. Question is, as a gift, when you're expecting something in return, possibly, is that permissible? Clearly, one should not do business with non-kosher foods. And the machlokas between Tosfos and the Maharam is whether you can buy non-kosher food as a gift to somebody else. And there's a distinction between feeding your employees and giving non-kosher food gifts. And they get into details about that. Going back to our original Mishnah Shvius, you can't do business with payroll Shvius, meaning that which is awesome in our Torah, you can't profit from. So it would be the same type of Isur in terms of giving payroll Shvius as a gift. Again, is a gift considered a transaction or not? Is it a business type of deal, or is it simply without any expectation of anything in return? Again, more contemporary poskim will go into great detail. The Aruch HaShulchan says it again. It's common practice. That's the language. Common practice to provide non-kosher food to your employees. So the office party might fall into that category, theoretically. If, you have a big office. It's an expense item. Granted, it's part of your budget, but it is an expense item, and it's cheaper to provide non-kosher food than it is to provide kosher food, especially if it's a big office. But if you're not profiting from it, that's the key issue. If you're not profiting from it in any way, it's just a symbol of holiday cheer, it's a symbol of hakaras hatov to your employees who work hard all year long, then you can dray around with it and find a teirum for it. Related to that, I'll come to a conclusion or some type of conclusion. Related to that, if I'm a manager, if I own a non-kosher nursing home, non-Jewish nursing home, can I provide non-kosher food to the non-Jewish residents in that nursing home. And again, he allows you to be makil on the condition, and this is an important stipulation, that you appoint a non-Jewish member of your staff to do the ordering or serving or what have you. So it's not you directly doing it, it's an indirect type thing. All right, but that's a practical question. There are many Jewish people, we have people in our shul who work in non-Jewish nursing homes. And the residents are not necessarily Jewish. Can you serve the non-kosher food?
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's some Jewish people, they don't want to identify as being Jewish. I think if you ask somebody, well, are you Jewish? They might tell you no, and they might really be Jewish. And then you're falling into a pit. Because
Well,
you're doing something, and you could say it's on them because they didn't tell you the truth.
All right, so
I would stay away from this.
I'll give you a practical situation. Daughters of Miriam. Daughters of Miriam is a kosher nursing home right here in Clifton. And many of the residents are non-Jewish. The community has changed. Many people are non-Jewish. Many don't care about kosher food. It's an expensive item on the budget. And a number of my relatives were there. And at a particular time when my late mother was a resident of Daughters of Miriam, they decided to change from kosher to kosher style. And I sued them. And I won. And they had to keep on providing kosher food. Now they have two separate kitchens, one kosher. But at the time when my mother was there, I actually sued them to make sure they kept on offering kosher food. They still have a kosher kitchen, and they went through a lot of changes. That's a separate issue, but it's a problem in many places where there are people who don't care about it. And many people, the majority of the residents in Daughters of Miriam nursing home couldn't care less. Many not even Jewish. So, and that was a big problem. What was the hospital in Patterson? Barnett Hospital. Barnett Hospital was originally founded in Patterson when it was a big Jewish community, and Barnett Hospital had in its founding charter that it must be a kosher hospital. And for decades, over a century perhaps, it only served kosher food. But Patterson changed. It was no longer a Jewish community, even though the yeshiva came in there 20 years too late to save the community. And the majority of the people in the hospital were non-Jews, almost entirely non-Jews, minority people. And, but they were still serving kosher meals. And all these people were having nice kosher meals. And at some point, they had to go to court and had to change the charter. The family had to agree to it. If they were able to change the, but these are practical halakhic issues. There were no Jews in the hospital at the time, so it was less of an issue. Now the hospital closed down. The story, yeah.
To go back to something about like owning a property. So let's say a Jew owns a hotel or motel or something like that. And a lot of times they have like a little food area in the lobby where you can buy
Yes.
snacks
Same question.
or whatever.
Same question.
Would that Jew halachically be required to look at all the items he's offering in the snack department?
Okay, good.
For people to buy?
Oh, so if you have an establishment which offers snack foods, l'chatchila, it should be kosher snack foods in the machines. However, practically speaking, if you have a non-Jewish employee in charge of the vending machines, then it's less of a problem to do that, and you don't have to be so makpid. And that comes down to halacha. Most poskim would say that you shouldn't l'chatchila give non-Jewish food to a non-Jew. However, if a non-Jewish person does the actual purchasing, or you delegate someone else to buy it, gift cards also fall into that category. Gift cards to restaurants Restaurants serve food that's acceptable as well as that's not kosher. So gift cards are an easier way to get to do this. There are, again, the issue is still an issue. There are leniencies to be applied, and the most posts would come down and say you can do it, and it would be better if a non-Jew was in charge of the ordering. In terms of a Jewish group giving food to first responders, police, fire department, etc., preferably it would be kosher food. First of all, they should know it's coming from a Jewish organization, and it supports the Jewish businesses. Whether if you're giving them bagels, you buy from the kosher bagel store. If you're giving them pizza, buy from the kosher pizza store. Whatever it might be, and in addition to being a Kiddush Hashem, they'll also, you know what, this kosher pizza is not bad. Maybe I'll go to Zevi's and give them business. But the bottom line is, l'chatchila, you not ought to profit in any way from non-kosher food items. And goodwill for the Jewish community is also a form of profit, if you will. If they get a call from a synagogue, if they get a call from a Jewish person that they know of, maybe they'll be faster to respond if they know who it is. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way, and they'll respond to anybody who calls, but it's always important to know who your friends are, so to speak. So there is an inarticulated quid pro quo for giving gifts. And theoretically, l'chatchila, it should be kosher, but if it's going to be a large expense, or it's an office party, or a big spread for the fire department on Thanksgiving or New Year's Day, whatever it might be, if it's non-kosher food, then at least have a non-Jewish person in charge of ordering the food. But a number of achronim come down on a lenient side to do this, but just be aware the halakhic issues are not to have any hana, not to have any benefit from doing business in non-kosher food should always be primary in people's minds. That's based on the Mishnah in Shvius, payroll Shvius, non-kosher foods. But again, all the posts can record the fact that it is considered acceptable, or I shouldn't say that, what's the language they use? It's common practice. It's common practice for people to give non-Jewish, non-kosher food to employees in different places in Europe, on farms or what have you. But if at all possible, try to make it kosher food. Yes.
You gave an example of a Jew who owned a non-kosher butcher or something.
Yes.
And donated $1 million.
Yes.
Any issue?
Of course there were halakhic issues.
About accepting the guy's $1 million.
All right. So when a shul is offered a gift of $1 million, I don't know how many issues they're going to raise. Whether they should or shouldn't is a different story.
So for someone who is, let's say, I don't know, about tshuva or exploring Judaism, to me, that would be a red flag. It's like, you have all these halachas, you can't touch me, you can't touch her. But this guy made his $1 million.
I have always questioned this. The gentleman involved was a very fine person, upstanding member of the community, very involved with his shul, but he made his business out of non-kosher meat. I don't know if he ever asked a shaila about it. I don't know if they asked the rabbi of the shul whether they could accept this money or not. I would tend to think not, because this was a respected member of the community. That's maybe, I don't know, did he inherit the business from his father, or was it a family business, or was it his own business?
He came about silk, right?
Yeah.
He came from Europe in the late 1930s, and he established a business.
I did on his own. Okay, so again, I don't know how many shilas he may have asked, if he asked at all. And these things come up, and the repercussions of let's assume, for argument's sake, that it was inappropriate for him to be in that business. Well, that's one assumption, but he was. let's assume that it may have been inappropriate for the shul to accept that money. But they did. And what happens to all the salaries they paid and all the good things they did with that money? I don't know how you balance that. I'm just raising it. I still have a besamim box that he gave me as a wedding gift, a silver, beautiful. Yeah.
So when I was working, there were clients that gave me, they would send it in the mail. I'd get a box with 2 bottles of wine.
Right.
A box of assorted cheeses that were all tried. So if I just threw that out, that would be malpractice.
Right.
So I would give it to the janitor, the shul,
Correct.
or,
All right.
somebody non-Jewish.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I mean, under those if somebody gives you that gift, they don't care what you do with it. I mean, you have there's a whole separate issue, and I can't get into it now. What are the halachic implications of regifting? Now, if when you give the box of cheese to your janitor, and you say to him, I got this from somebody, it's not kosher, but I want you to have it. I don't want to throw it out. That's one thing. If you give it to him and you say, Merry Christmas, he thinks that you gave it you bought it. So how you give it to him is also a fact. Does he think it came from you? Or you're just being a nice guy and give it to him because you don't want to throw it out? There's a different value of that gift then. It changed. So are you better if you give it to him as if it's coming from you? You're getting an inappropriate benefit from that.
Wally,
Yes.
also Geneva's does.
Yeah, I'm saying it's inappropriate. He thinks that you're giving it to him, that you bought it for him, when in effect you're just giving it over to him because you can't eat it. So it's inappropriate on a number of levels. But just to be aware, that just to sum up, the whole purpose of this is to show that the questions go back to the Mishnah, go back to the Chumash, in fact, and it's just a modern application of the question of whether or not you can do this, to give non-kosher food to non-Jewish employees or a party or so forth, so on. L'chatchila, you shouldn't. But if you do, it should be a non-Jew that does the ordering, perhaps. So there are practices that are acceptable, but not necessarily recommended. And given in the society in which we live, these parties take place, or these gifts take place on a regular basis. And if the Jewish community is involved in being makir tov to first responders of fire or police, it should come from the Jewish community in a Jewish way, which would be support your local kosher bagel store or caterer, pizza store in that case. Anyhow, have a wonderful day. Stay warm out there. It's kind of chilly.
That's correct. Nice to have you back.
Good to be back. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Wally.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a great day.
Okay, I'm not touching that. I'm doing the right thing here.
Welcome back, Wally.
Thank you.